Welcome to All Things Rex Worldwide. It's another Thursday, and my guest today is actor, producer, author Peter Sherayko. I'll tell you more about him in just a moment, but this is All Things Rex Worldwide. We broadcast live every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and wherever it is in your local time zone. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're watching live, you can leave comments and chats. Be sure to like the show, share the show, let other people know that we're broadcasting, and go ahead and and hang out. So Peter Sherayko makes himself available to colleges and universities to share his 40 plus years in the business with students who wish to make the entertainment business their career. Aside from writing and speaking about the West and Westerns, because he is an author of some really fabulous books, and we're going to have those his website up in a little bit. But Peter acts and he produces for both film and television. He's appeared in over 90 films, 200 television and stage shows. Peter was the producer on the film Bone Tomahawk with his longtime friend Kurt Russell. And during the past 2 years, Peter's co-starred in 6 films, 2 of which he produced. One, Soldier's Revenge, which was released last year in 2021, and Shooting Star, which will be released on Father's Day of this year. That last movie, Shooting Star, is the movie that I got to work with Peter. And in fact, one of the scenes in the movie, Peter and I get to play off of each other. So I love talking with Peter both on and off the mic. I'm so glad that he's here. And so I'm going to bring him up so that we can see him and say hi to Peter Sherayko. There he is, sir. Are you there?
Good afternoon, Rex. How are you?
I'm great, Peter. So just so the audience knows where you are, you're at your ranch in outside of Los Angeles. So there may be a little bit of lag time, like satellite linking, news overseas. But Peter, how you doing?
We're in a little town called Aguadulce, which I call it Mayberry. It's absolutely crime-free. We have one sheriff that lives in town. We have no post office. It's a great place. We all live on dirt roads, and we have horses and cows,
and they do,
and dogs.
And Peter has a movie ranch, so that people can different production companies, small and large, come and film on your property there.
Yeah, yep. They come out. We have a TV show for Hulu filming right now called Good Trouble, and they're filming till September, but they only come out every couple of weeks. And then we have another show that I'm the consulting producer on called Wild West Chronicles, which is on INSP. So if you're on DirecTV, it's on channel 364. We just finished the second season a couple of weeks ago, and we start the third season in July.
Well, and what people ought to know also about you is that if they are doing a production like the ones you mentioned, you can provide set locations. You can provide set. You can dress the set. You can
everything for a Western. I created this company about 30 years ago, and I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, in this business, you have to have a laundromat. You have to have something that makes money when you're not making money. So I thought about it, and then during the 80s, I was always a big Western fan. I collected the West since the 70s. I played cowboys as a kid, and I had to realize, what is my laundromat going to be? Well, watching movies, I kept on saying, the costumes are wrong. The guns are wrong. The saddles are wrong. They're not doing anything right. And as I was meeting more and more people who supplied it, I realized they didn't know the period. They didn't study the period. And I have a lot of friends who are very knowledgeable in the period. And they did the same thing. They always complain, this movie it's terrible. It's no good. It's unwatchable. And people want to watch a Western, but they don't want to watch a Western when you're not appealing to the core audience. And your core audience are historians. Your core audience are people who are horsemen, who are gunmen, who know these things, and they can instantly see when an actor can't ride a horse. They can instantly see when a guy doesn't know how to handle a gun. So what I said, okay, nobody's done anything about it. I said, I'm going to do something about it. I am going to create the company that we do everything. So we do horses, we do correct period saddles, we do the guns. When we did Tombstone, I designed all the guns for that so that each character had the same type of gun that the original person had. Nobody else does that. Nobody else cares about it. Nobody else thinks about it. When if you go to another prop house or go to another armory and say, okay, we're doing a Western and I need 12 guns. And some guy who's working, and they don't make a lot of money at prop houses, the people who work there. And they'll go, okay, yeah, here's our Western collection. Okay, here's 12 guns. Boom. Well, I will look at it. I will look at the script. I will break the script down. I will look at the character. I will say, what year is it? Because everything is different. So I designed the guns fitting the character and the year that it's taking place. Went in for a couple of years ago, many years ago, for a meeting on a TV show they were doing, and they were going to have Jesse and Frank James robbing a bank. And I said, great. I have all the guns that Jesse and Frank James had. I had my leather makers made up the correct holsters that the real people had. So I'm sitting there with the line producer, and I said, yep, what year is this bank robbery taking place? Because 1867, they had different stuff than they had in 1876. So where are we going? He looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? Jesse James is a fictional character. I threw up my hands. I said, okay, we don't have this movie. And it's true. We didn't work on it. And the show didn't last long at all. But that's what I did. And then I also did with the costumes. And then we went into the horses and saddles, the props, the set dressing. And then 15 years ago, when we moved out to Agua I was lucky enough to find a 2,400-acre ranch right here in the studio zone. And when I went to it, I said, this is a movie ranch. It's right here. And it's all this. It's valleys and canyons and stream beds and ponds and things. I said, let's make them, let's use it as a movie ranch. Well, I met with the owner and I made a partnership deal with him and we worked together on it. So whenever I rent a ranch, he gets half the money, I get half the money. And his wife calls me their money tree because they're getting money that they never thought about getting before. And I'm renting the thing out to everybody. And like you mentioned before, I go to colleges and universities and talk to people and help them in their careers. I have one college that sends me interns every semester so that I can teach them the ins and outs of the job. And then when we're doing a show, I'll put the work on the show so they actually get paid. And, that works well. Well, on the ranch, it's very good to me. And everybody, just let me retract a little bit here. Everybody needs a mentor. I mean, just like you do with your books and how you teach people to live life on their own terms. That's what I do. I don't try to lead by telling people what to do. I try to lead by example. So one of my guys who was he had no idea. None of my mentors knew that they were my mentor. They were people that instructed me in something or gave me a piece of advice that I stuck by, that I lived by, that I said, this is what I want to do. This is how I do it. So one guy, a guy named Norm Silver, who was an actor in New York, and we did stage plays together. But his job, his laundromat, was a jazz club on 63rd Street, First Avenue, which was a great jazz club. Well, I asked him how he got this, how he ran this. He said, I found an investor who bought the club and he ran the club. So he did his sweat equity. The investor was in Florida, and every cent that came in, half of it went to the investor, half of it went to Norm. And I said, that's a great idea. Find somebody, find something. And so that's when I found the location. It was paid for, somebody else owned it. It was paid for. I said, look, I will run it. I will do everything. I will take care of all the business, and I will give you half the money. So they're very happy. They're making half the money. We got like I said, we have a TV series going out now for 6 months. We have another one, that we're working on. I've got a show coming out on Saturday. So everybody is happy. Everybody makes, a little money. And I say, people, we don't make a lot of money. We make a little money, a lot. And the other things that I do is, again, we do the props, the costumes, the set dressing, the horses, the guns, and I do it all historically correct, all period correct. And anytime I'm doing something wrong or something happens and people notice it, and I say, "Good, tell me what I did wrong, and I will correct it. I will try and correct it." My biggest problem is dealing with it's either the director or an actor or a major actor who comes the star that comes in, and he wants to do it his way. And I'll say that's not historically correct. That's wearing your bandana the wrong way. Don't wear that Australian range coat. That's from Australia in the 1960s, and everybody thinks it's cool, but it's not period 1870s, 1880s in the West. Don't do that. And some of them will just say, "Oh, well, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to do it our way." That's one of the biggest obstacles that I have to overcome. That's one of the biggest things I have to deal with. It is they don't care. They care about, am I important? Yeah, I'm important. I'm a big shot.
Wow.
And that comes back with the people who watch it. That comes back because I tell people it's your core audience. One time I'm talking to a producer and he said to me, "Well, who knows what's right? Well, 1% of the people?" And I said, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. 1% know. But we have 330 million people in this country. If 1% go to the movies and spend $10, that's $33 million you just pulled in on your movie." That lit him up. Then his eyes got brighter. Then he said, I can make money on it. All right, let's do it. Let's do it your way. I had a girl that worked for me up till a couple of years ago, and she and her family moved to Hawaii. But for one of my birthday presents that she bought me over the years was a license plate cover, and it said, "Be reasonable, do it my way." Yeah, give me a question.
Oh, Peter, yeah, I got a question. I want to say hey to Jake Stetler. Jake is a director and a screenwriter who's got a lot of traction behind him. He's a friend. He and I used to go to a movie festival in the western state of Wisconsin together. He'd come in from the East Coast, and I'd meet him there. And I love Jake. He's here watching the show. He did a tour of your ranch at one time. And I think Jake. So I mean, it's very cool that he's here. I want to remind the audience that you can share the show, like the show, leave comments, in the chat room as Jake and others have just done, and you're welcome. One of the things that I want to point out about you, Peter, is because we advertise the show, hey, we're going to talk about movies, we're going to talk about the West, we're going to talk about this, but what you just described and what I've known about you for the over a decade we've known each other. Is that you're an
Yeah, I'd heard
you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman. So often you hear people say, "Well, how do I make it in business?" Well, you add value to other people. You create yourself so that you're indispensable and you can't be replaced. And you have done that. I mean, you just described that very thing. And you didn't mention the fact that you also provide cowboy talent. You've got the Buckaroo Boys.
Yeah, I created the Buckaroos, which are guys I used them the year before Tombstone. We did a movie called Gray Night, or The Killing Box. It's got several names. It was a Civil War zombie movie, and then the following year we did Tombstone, and I brought all these guys in that are they're gunsmiths, leather makers, saddle makers, horse trainers, horseshoers, but they love the Old West. So they come in their costumes with their horses, with their guns. And we have a long time, so I'll tell you one interesting story about that. We were in a meeting for Tombstone, and Kevin Jarre, who was the writer of the script and the first director, was sitting there, and he looked at me and he says, "Okay, here, show me these people you're bringing in. I want to see these guys you're bringing in." Well, I had them in alphabetical order, and the first guy, there's a famous photo from the 1880s of a hash knife cowboy in Arizona. And what he did was he created the chaps, the look, the hat. He had the same saddle, and he took the photo of himself in the same pose that the guy had with his saddle and did it in sepia tone. So Kevin looked at the picture and he goes, "That's it. That is a 1880s Arizona cowboy. That's the look I want." Joe Porro, who was an outstanding costumer, a costume designer, and did the show, he said, "Joe, this is what I want the cowboys to look like." So Joe looked at the picture, and then he looked at the other pictures, and he came up to me after the meeting, and he said, "What book did you get this picture out of?" And I said, "No, that's not a picture from a book. That's one of the guys I'm bringing in as one of the Red Sash gang, as one of the Buckaroos." And he went, "Oh my God, I can't have the extras looking better than the principals. How do I do this?" I said, "No problem. We'll help you." So one of the guys, his wife, was a seamstress that made period shirts for the cowboy action shooters. And she made 400 shirts for the movie. Joe designed them all. He bought the material and he said, "Okay, this character is going to have this shirt. This character is going to have that style, every style." And then she made all the styles up there. I had to deal with Stetson, so I got Stetson to make us the hats. All the guys that I know that make boots, spurs, chaps, I ordered all of that stuff. And then I had all the gun belts made for the movie, but I had it made in the correct period look. So that's why the costuming in that movie, there's no other movie that's been out since then or before that looks as good as Tombstone. And it's because we cared about it. Kevin Jarre knew what he wanted. He knew what everybody should look like. And he insisted that that is the look, that that is how people should be. And we were able to bring it to him and to bring it to the production. And that's what made it the cult favorite it is. I just came back from Oklahoma City a couple of weeks ago, and I was there with Kurt Russell, who was getting into the Cowboy Hall of Fame of Western performers, and and of course we saw each other. We didn't see each other since we did Bone Tomahawk, but we had a great time together, and we realized that it was Kurt who took over literally the directing side of it, and then all of my stuff that was in the movie that made the movie the iconic movie it is. Anyway, I'm going to break my arm patting myself on the back, but that's what we do. I try to make it as historically correct as possible. And people say, "Well, it's a movie, and who cares if it's a movie or not?" What we really want to, if you want to see it historically correct, watch a documentary. So we do documentaries, but documentaries are even harder to do because the budgets are so low that they can't do this. And the Buckaroos that I hired for years, we did one called Wild West Tech for the History Channel. We did 2 seasons of that. I brought all the Buckaroos in, and it was great. Everything went along smoothly. A lot of the movies I brought, when we did Shooting Star, I brought all the guys in, most of the guys in that rode horses. One guy I didn't bring in, but we won't talk about that. Now I've been doing this for 30 years. So all those guys are now, they're not 20 years old anymore. They're now 50 years old and 60 years old and 70 years old. And the production companies are going, "Oh, we want guys in their 20s. So we're doing this other show and they're bringing all these guys in their 20s. They can't ride. They can't shoot. They don't know how to handle a gun. We had one guy in a couple of months ago on one of the shows, and the producer said, "Oh no, he's a horseman. He's a rider." So we put him on a horse, and as soon as you see a guy on a horse, you know if he can ride or not ride, or if he's a horseman. And my wrangler went up to him and said, "You've never been on a horse before, have you?" And he said, "No, but I thought I could figure it out. I can't." To me, riding horses is like playing golf. I can teach a person how to sit a horse, how to get on a horse, how to do everything on a horse in 20 minutes. And after that, it's a lifetime of communicating with that animal. It's just like golf. You can learn how to play golf in a half hour, but it takes a lifetime of mastering that game. Look at the Masters. Nobody gets a hole in one every hole. It's a difficult thing to do. So is riding horses. So is
You know,
shooting guns. This is why I have such an interest in the West. My interest in the West is you have these acquired skills that you can use in them. We you don't they don't necessarily pay out in any other movie. The Walking Zombie, Walking Dead. You can be a zombie. Everybody's a zombie. All right, I got makeup on. I'm a zombie. Blah 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 blah. But you can't be in a Western unless you can really sit a horse. You can't be in a Western unless you can really handle a gun. And that's why you don't see too many Westerns, and that's why you don't see too many good ones, because they really depend on stunt guys. And the stunt guys, and again, since the 80s, now in the last 5-10 years, it's been a little different. But before that, from say the 70s and the 80s, when Westerns were totally out, the stunt guys were good at turning cars over, at catching themselves on fire, on falling out of a 50-story building. That's what their stunts were. They didn't ride horses anymore. Now a lot of them are rodeo riders. But that's a different premise. Using a roping saddle and riding in a rodeo is different from using a 1870s saddle and shooting a 6-gun. Totally different. But a lot of people don't understand that, and then it doesn't work that way. You have to be comfortable.
well,
Should I shut up? I've been vaccinated. Go ahead.
Vaccinated with a photograph needle. Is that what you're about to say?
The what?
Peter,
What?
I said, Peter, I love you. So let me. I want to make a couple statements, then ask a question, and then ask a follow-up question that has nothing to do with the one I'm going to ask. But first off,
okay, we can do that. Whatever.
I was very fortunate back in 1980. I played Death on Horseback, and I had grown up riding, but I was not, an expert rider. So they gave me 6, 7, 8 months of riding lessons so that I could look like I'd ridden a horse all my life. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So it's 79, 80, somewhere in there. And the question that I'm going to ask, but I want to continue before I ask the question, is what I learned at the time was that the more sophisticated the horse was, the more commands that it had, and the more that it knew how to do, the better rider you needed to be, or you ended up screwing up the horse. I mean, in other words, if you weren't secure in you weren't a secure rider, you would be giving the horse.
That happens all the time. Actors screw up horses all the time, and then we have to take a couple of days to reschool the horse.
Right. So it pays. The other opportunity that I missed was about a year or two before that. Somebody had interviewed me and said, "Hey, our actor has got to leave. We want to replace him with you. Can you do quick draw?" I said, "No, I have no idea." He said, "Well, don't worry. We'll give you lessons." I said, "Fantastic." He said, "Just make sure that you have this available." I canceled everything. I said, "Okay." I canceled a trip that I was doing and canceled other projects. I did everything. I went back to the guy's house, a couple of days later. I walk in to the meeting that we had, and he said, "Oh, the actor's decided he's going to do it. We don't need you." I was like, "Oh God!" I turned around and I walked out. I didn't say anything. I'd canceled, tons of stuff. I learned at that point never cancel anything until you have a contract signed. But like Will Roberts, who has worked in Shooting Star and everything. This guy ropes, he does guns, he does clowning, he does magic, he does so many different things, and brings it to the movie. I loved meeting him, and I loved watching him. But my question regarding history and the movies is this. I grew up like many of us watching, Westerns of the 30s, 40s, 50s, particularly, John Ford, John Wayne, and other famous actors of the day, and the Hollywood Western. But I also watched, the old silent Westerns and the Westerns of the, the early 20s and 30s. And I got to admit that as a kid, I was more impressed with Gary Cooper and John Wayne and Audie Murphy and the way they looked, even if it was inaccurate. Would it be fair to say that the early silent movies were more historically accurate in the way the cowboys dressed and did things because it was closer to the time frame? And that Hollywood
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. I watch a lot of those movies. I mean, I have 9,000 Western movies on tape, DVDs, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not watching a Western movie. And I like the old ones. I like the old ones much better. There's a couple of books out. Oh gosh, I can't. I always have the senior moment when it comes to names. There's a it'll come to me at one point. But he wrote a lot of books, and he was a actor. He was a bad guy. He was an extra. He was a stunt guy back in the 30s and the 40s. He died a few. I was lucky enough to meet him back around 19 mid late 90s before he died. That he wrote several books, and I bought all these books. And one of them is he was saying a lot of cowboys were coming out. They were actual cowboys. They were working on a ranch, and they found out that in the 30s, when we were in the Depression, and they were making $1 a day doing hard work, they could make $5 a day riding a horse in a movie. And they said, "Whoa, that's a way to go." And he was saying, not only did you make $5 a day, but if you had your own horse, you made more money. And if you had your own gun, you made more money. And if you came in your own costume, you made more money. So these guys might have only been making $10 or $12 a day, but it sure beat making it $1 a day doing hard work. And there was no buses and things and trucks and everybody would come. Sometimes they would be 9 miles away from the set. They would ride their horse to the set, work all day, and then ride their horse back home at night. And that was a full day for them. But they made money, and they were horsemen. They could ride. That's why in these early movies from the late 20s, early 30s, you saw guys that could ride. There was another book, and I think her name was Little Marie or Baby Marie. She was a silent actress as a kid back in the 20s. And when she was in her 90s, Frank Stallone and I went to the silent movie theater in LA to meet her. And I had her books signed to me. She wrote a book in the 70s called The Hollywood Posse, and was about her father, who was one of these cowboys. And that's what they did. And that's to me is what that's what always interested me when I was a little kid watching this stuff. I was amazed by the horsemanship on the movies, and I was amazed by the gun shooting on the movies. That's why when I was a little kid, I begged my parents, take me to pony riding lessons. And pony riding lessons back in the 50s weren't like they are now. Now I see these kids and they strap them in a saddle, and they have a little pony going around in a merry-go-round thing. But when I was a kid, they took you out there, they threw you on this horse, they threw you on this pony, and they said, "Okay, go on out there." And you went out there. And if you fell down, you fell off, you got back on again. But that was a fun. When I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I was begging that. When I was 10 years old, I had a neighbor whose brother had a rental stable. I was in coming from New Jersey. He had a rental stable in Roosevelt Park, and they had bridle paths through the park. Now all of that is gone. But back then, at 10 years old, I would come home from school, change clothes, and I'd walk the 2 miles to the park and go to him. And I would have to shovel out stalls and clean up after horses. And then he would allow me to ride. And that's how he taught me how to ride. And one of the other guys that taught me how to ride he told me, and back then, they were easy to get. Silver dollars, they were expensive to get. But when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, he would say, "Okay, you got to bring $2 silver with you." And I got down to quarters, but I would do that, hustling for as much money as I could get as a kid. And I would go there, and you'd have to sit on the saddle and put each coin between your thigh and the saddle. And then you have to walk the horse, lope the horse, gallop the horse, and come back to him. And you better have that money there, or you lost that money because it's out in the field somewhere. And that's how that's the old guy's way of teaching you how to ride.
Wow.
It's gonna cost you. It's like I say to people, I got a poker game tonight. I play poker, and they go, "Oh, do you play?" I say, "Yeah, we play once or twice a month for years." And I said, "Do you ever lose?" I said, "I've never lost at poker. I either win or I've spent a lot of money for a lesson." And to me, I'm learning something in school.
Well, that's a great attitude. I love that. And we're going to have to take a commercial break in just a moment. But I want to say, one, Jake Stetler put the name of your book up there, and we were running the skull, and we'll ask that question in a second. But caravanwest.com is Peter's website, and the book was The Fringe of Hollywood: The Art of Making a Western. Jake says it's a veritable Bible of info from Mr. Sherayko, and I agree.
Let me tell you something about that book.
Pardon me?
Are you ready?
Well, let me
tell you something about that book.
Let me do that after the break, because he also has a question. I wanted to make a mention of one thing, and that was what you just said. When they were giving me horseback riding lessons for the 6-7 months, then we shot the movie. I went to the ranch, and I said it was Corky, and I said, "Can I continue to ride here? I will shovel horse apples all day long in exchange for lessons and in exchange for riding." And they said, "Absolutely." And so I did. And for about a month, I was doing that. And then I was injured in my skydiving accident, which I write about in my book. And then the rest was history. I was no longer at the ranch because I'd been injured, and I couldn't proceed at that time. But what a wonderful experience, and what a beautiful time. Peter, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to ask the question that Jake had up on the thing. If other people have questions, they certainly can ask them. Remember, this is also in replay, so you can leave comments in the replay. You can like it. You can subscribe to the channel, obviously, but you can also share it with your friends. I would consider this, what Peter has shared in the first half of this show, a masterclass in business and how you make yourself indispensable and how you create an income that can flow while you sleep or while you do other things. I remember you telling me, it must have been 2009, that every actor has this bell curve kind of career. So you go up one side and down the other, and that you didn't want to be coming down the other side. So you created this business, this laundromat, so that you could always have money coming in, and you made yourself dispensable. You solved problems for so many people, all the things that people learn or are told that they should do, but sometimes don't know how to do. And you exemplify that. But let's take a break, and then we'll be right back. So without any further ado,
I'm here.
I want to thank the Lord.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
I want to thank the Los Angeles Tribune for making this show possible. And what you just saw, by the way, in commercial was the late Bob Proctor and Mr. Dennis Waitley. Not that long ago, we did the New Psychology of Winning tour with Mr. Waitley, his daughter, Deborah, and Bob, and Brian Tracy, Joe Vitale, and many others. And the good news is we're doing another tour. It's going to be the Can You Really Think and Grow Rich? It's coming up in June, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th for the Los Angeles Tribune. And it will be in conjunction with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. So we're going to be talking Napoleon Hill with all sorts of impressive guests. So you're going to want to pay attention, and you're going to want to be sure to be there at that time. So join us then, and join us in between each week on All Things Rex. And we're going to go back and talk here with Peter Sherayko. Caravanwest.com is his website. And Peter, Jake asked, Peter asked,
here I am.
Here you are. I want to talk Shooting Star in just a moment and get to the movie, because that's something that, I was fortunate to work with you on because of you. And we could talk some of the other movies that you produced too. But Jake asked the question. He said, "Were you talking about Yakima Canute when the stuntman, when you were talking about Baby
Yak did he created a lot of the stunts. I mean, he was an ultimate. And if you saw the early John Wayne movies, all those ones that they did for Lone Star, that was Yak doing all the stunts. And he was. I was lucky enough to meet him when he was in his 90s before he died. My Susan and I went to his funeral. He's just a neat guy. And I have a friend of ours made a video of him, and I have it on a video cassette somewhere in my. hidden away somewhere. It's the most wonderful show, and it's all about him doing the stunts and which ones he created and how he was, and he was just a humble guy who he was the second unit director on Ben-Hur,
Yeah.
and with Charlton Heston, and Heston, who had to learn how to drive that chariot with the 4 horses abreast.
Right.
And he Heston said to him, he said, Yak, he says, I'm a little nervous about this. I don't know. And Yak said, don't worry, I read the script. I know you're going to win.
It's what I miss and what I don't like about movies today, and what I did love about movies growing up and not that long ago, quite frankly, is if there were horses in the movie, they were riding the horses. They were they weren't CGI horses. They weren't people had to have sets of skills. They had to know how to duel. They had to know how to gunsling. They had to know how to do stage fights. They had to know how to ride the horses, whether they were stuntmen or, as you said,
all of that. Yeah, all of that came from the studio system,
right?
Because you were under contract to the studio, and when you weren't working on a movie or a TV show, you were still getting paid. You weren't getting paid much, but you were still getting paid. And they said, okay, you have to go and take sword lessons, take sword fighting lessons. You're going to go take horse lessons this week. You're going to go and learn how to shoot a gun this week. You're going to go and learn how to do all of these things that we don't do now. So it's up to the actors if they want to do it. That's why when I first started in the 70s, I didn't know much about guns, and I had not ridden a horse in 10 years, since I went into New York, and I had to do this stuff. And a girl that I went out with at the time, Barra Nielsen, loved this girl. I think she was a girl. Anyway, she told me, she says, you have to pick out your own pigeonhole because they're going to pigeonhole you in this. And I said, well, I like the outdoors. I want to be outdoors. I want to be the outdoor guy. And the first movie I did, they gave me a gun, and I realized I didn't know how to use it. Yes, I spent 4 years in the Air Force. Yes, I was in Vietnam. Yes, I was this, but I wasn't a grunt. I was fixing airplanes. So I didn't know that much about guns. So I took 2 years of my life while I'm still auditioning, while I'm still doing things, to go and take the best people I could find to teach me how to shoot a bow and arrow, teach me how to shoot a gun, take me trap shooting, take me Bob Munden, who's in Guinness Book of World Records. For 2 years, I worked with him doing a stunt show for his show while he taught me how to handle single action guns. I spent all of that time doing it.
Amazing?
But that's me personally.
Well,
because I wanted to do that.
Well, you mentioned earlier you mentioned earlier the need of a mentor or a coach, and so much of what you and I are used to because of not only the studio system, but pursuing an acting career is constant coaching or constant acting lessons or constantly doing something to be able to up your game so that you can get hired. 2 points. One is the guy, I can't think of his name right now, who was Errol Flynn's coach in the Robin Hood movies and things like that. We're still around, huh? He was still around teaching.
I'm just saying Robin Hood.
Yeah, but he was still around teaching.
I don't know his name. I think his name is in the book. But
he was still teaching fencing in the
Wicked
70s.
Wicked Ways. Yeah,
right. Oh, yes.
If you haven't read that book, read it.
It's a beautiful book. I love that book. It's one of my favorites. Another point I want to make, because I mentioned, the practical side of filmmaking, but also the practical side of effects that, once CGI effects are not the same as rubber and tubes and gas and smoke and all this stuff that, really used to go on to make something look real, even when it didn't oftentimes, like in the horrible sci-fi, or monster movies. But I was talking about the movie that I made with Charlene Tilton. It was a movie called Pale Horse, Pale Rider. It was about the short story. And Charlene starred in it, and I played Gus. And they wouldn't let her. She was doing Dallas at the time, and Dallas wouldn't let her ride. In her contract, she wasn't allowed to get on a horse and ride, so they had to double her. And they went through 3 different women riders before they found the last one who rode. Who's the one I went skydiving with? and injured
Yeah, well,
myself.
it all depends on the insurance, policy that you have for
Right, but
your star. If something happens to them, they get hurt, they're in trouble.
But the
So they have
point,
to watch out for that.
you're right. But the point that I want to make with that is that Charlene was so disappointed at the time and so envious. I got all these fabulous lessons and could go riding, and they wouldn't let her do any of that. So, I got the benefit.
No, they wouldn't let me do it either. 1988, I was starring in a movie in Texas called Black Snow. And this one guy wanted to sell me a horse. And yeah. And the producer said, no, you're not getting on that horse. I can't if you get hurt, we're all screwed. No, you will not get on that horse, even though I had horses and I had no problem about it. But I couldn't. And when we did the other movie, the year before, we did Tombstone, Gray Knight, the lead actor in that movie, he had to ride a horse a little bit in the movie. So he rode a horse a little bit in the movie, but he wanted to come riding with me. So we're out there riding the horses. And the producer comes driving up to me. Get him off that horse. You cannot have him. No, I will not allow that. So that's just the way it was. And I said, hey, he wanted to ride. He's the star.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. So let's turn our attention.
It's insurance. How much the insurance policy is going to cost you?
Oh,
it's business. You have to think it's show business. You can't have the show without the business, and you can't have the business without the show. So you got to have it mixed in there. You got to put it together.
So let's. I love that, and it's so true, and I'm enjoying this so much. Let's turn our attention to the two movies. The one that came out in 21, that now the name escapes me, and Shooting Star. So
what's
you
the other
produced the one in 1920, the one that preceded Shooting Star. You did two movies.
Soldier's Revenge. Soldier's Revenge.
Yeah, Soldier's Revenge, which starred Jay Pickett, who was also in Shooting Star, and Jay sadly passed away last year. Yes. And that was quite a beloved man.
It was a very funny situation. My wrangler, Jerry Bestpitch, I'm sure you know Jerry. Jerry came up to me one time and he said, hey, I have this guy that wants to put money in a movie. He's a rich guy. He wants to put money in a movie. And I said, okay, great. So he brought him out here and we sat in my library and we talked, and he ran a couple of magazines. He's a very wealthy guy. And I meet people all the time that want to do this. And all these people that I meet, it's all gobbledygook. John Milius told me one time, he says, look, he talks to these guys all the time. He says, one thing you ask him for is say, give me $10, we have a deal. And you'll be surprised how many of these rich people who talk big will not give you the $10 because they won't have a deal. So anyway, he was out there, and I didn't think too much of it because it happens all the time. A couple of months later, I was in Tombstone, Arizona for the 25th anniversary, and Frank Stallone and I were down there, and we were coming back, and I got a call from him. His name is Rick, and Rick called me up, and he said, I said, hey, we're going to Phoenix. We're going to have lunch at my friend's restaurant there. Come on down and join us for lunch. He said, no, I'm too busy. I said, come up here and see me. He lives up in Scottsdale. And I said, well, I said, all right, after lunch, come up after lunch. And he said, meet me at the Bentley dealer. So we drove to the Bentley dealer in Scottsdale, and Rick had just bought a Bentley and two Corvettes, one for him and one for his wife. And I'm going, okay, this guy's, So they gave him an office to sit down and talk to us. So we were talking to him. And he said, all right, what's this movie about? He said, I want to put money in a movie. What's it about? And I said, well, it's after the Civil War, 10 years after. And it's about a soldier who is still suffering from PTSD. Now, at that time, it wasn't called PTSD. That's a new phrase. It was called Soldier's Heart. And I told him that's what it was. And he went, I have PTSD. And he just stuck his hand across the desk and he said, how much money do you want? We have a deal. And that was it. We did a handshake. I told him how much money the budget was, and he wrote me a check. And then we produced a movie. I called Mike. Mike, let's do this movie. Do you have, I asked him if he had a Western. It was a modern movie. And he said, well, we can turn it into an old West. So we took a couple months and turned it into a Western. And then we filmed it. And then Rick called me the year after and he said, hey, I want to put money in another Western. What do you have? What do you have? And I said, Rick, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? He said, well, I want to see a movie about horsemen and shooting. And I like that. He's a mounted shooter. And he says, that's what I want to see. So I wrote the story. I called Mike and Mike, here's the story. It's based on what Rick wants. He's the money man. This is what he wants. So he changed it around a little bit because he does all these romantic things. So he brought in the love interest in it. But we did that and we called it Shooting Star. And actually what it was, we were inventing the sport of barrel racing and inventing shooting off horseback, which I used to do back in the 80s before it became a sport. And that's basically what the movie is about. It's about this girl who wants to win money so that she can send her sister who was injured in a horse accident to the doctors to cure her. And that's the basic premise of the movie. And then of course I play a corrupt mayor who wants to take all the money. And it's corrupt politician. And of course, I know your political feelings and I have my political feelings. So I wanted you to be an angry Republican businessman who's being taxed. I said, good, I'm going to have you and
Tony
Herbert. I brought him in. And yeah, but okay, you guys are left-wing guys. I'm going to bring in guys. I'm going to make you guys complaining about overtaxing. And I'm going to be the Democrat who's going to be taxing you and taking the money for myself. So that was my premise. Just an inside joke. Everybody knows about it, but it's an inside joke. And
truth be told, I'm not left-leaning or right-leaning.
That's what we did. And then unfortunately, sorrowfully, Rick passed away last January in it was January of 20.
Wow.
And I miss him, but his wife is still our business partner on the movie. So our basic deal is this. I make the simplest deals. I deal on a handshake and a simple deal. So the simple deal is this. Look, you put the money up. When we sell the movie, you get all your money back. And then after that, we split the money 50-50 between the investor and the production company.
What I like about you, Peter, is you're upfront, you're direct, you're honest, you got a great sense of humor. You know every joke line from every movie ever made, I think. And you're fun to work with. No, but and hey, I'll play a Republican for you anytime. But the point is this is that your set that you and Michael both ran, and I give both you and Michael and all of your cast and crew credit for this. I've been in this business like you. I've been in 42 years, since the early 70s, in professional movies. And, I've had some nightmare experiences and some horrible experiences and some, where I just wanted to, pull my teeth out and, and never, ever do anything like this again. Your set was one of the most wonderful, lovely, friendly, positive, enjoyable experiences that I've had in my lifetime of making movies. And I've said that over and over again. I hold you and Michael directly responsible for that, because as team leaders, as the executives, producer, director, and star of the movie and things like that, you set the pace, you set the tone, you set the environment. You brought these people together, and many of them have worked with you before. We've known each other for over a decade, but I had never worked with you before that. And I never worked with Michael, and I thoroughly loved it. And I loved everybody that I met, and there isn't a single person on that show or that set. And, I had my Facebook account shut down. It disappeared more than a year ago. So it's on a hard drive, but I lost all of the film and footage and background pictures of our shoot, plus all the other shoots that I've been on and different things. I've lost many of the contacts with friends that I'm trying to find out, who I friended, or, now when I try and refriend people, they're like, is this really you, or is this, a hacker, or is this, so I go through all this stuff just trying to get back to some of the people who I love and appreciate. But working for you truly was a highlight. That movie was wonderful. Michael Paré, who I've known for many years, the first time we've ever worked together. What I loved about Michael, who plays the sheriff, kind of your ally, I just found him such a wonderfully consummate professional on the set. He in terms of people, there are a lot of actors who have to showboat. They have to draw the attention to themselves, he or she. Michael was there. He was helpful to the people, and he stood. He was quiet. His presence was there, but the experience was one that really stands out among all the movie experiences that I've ever had. Truly, and that's the
yeah. Well, the way the business works. It's a business of friends hiring friends, of people hiring people that they like. Right. Neither Mike nor I want to work on a set that's a drag, that's full of arguments or full of egos or full of anything. So, yeah, I brought a lot of the people in that I've worked with before. I worked with Mike on 3 other movies, and we get along well, and we have fun. I brought you in because I said, hey, here's an opportunity for me to, give you a job.
I loved it.
Wait a minute. I didn't give you a job. I always like the John Wayne line from McClintock. I don't give jobs, I hire men.
I remember that because I said, thank you for the job. And you said right to my face, you're like, I didn't give you the job. You earned it, and I was like, thank you. But that speaks volumes as to who you are and the climate that you create and the environment that you create for the people that you work with and who work for you and around you. And I truly appreciate it.
Life is too short not to have fun. Life is too short not to, come on, look at your book. We say do it your own way, but no, life on your own terms.
Right.
But that's what it should be. That's what I try to tell everybody. There is something that you wanted to do when you were 10 years old. Whatever fulfilled your heart when you were 10 years old, if you can make a living at it as an adult, you got it made. When I was 10 years old, I played cowboys. Now I'm a lot older and I play cowboys. People ask me, are you a cowboy? Nope. We have 100 head of cows on the ranch, but I'm not a cowboy. I just play them on TV. No, I'm not. I'm not a worker. I don't work hard. I work smart, and I enjoy what I do. I like people. I was just talking to a guy yesterday while I was on my tractor feeding the horses, and he said, and he found out that I was 10 years older than he is, and he went, "You're 10? I didn't know that. I thought you were my age." He says, "Oh, you look great," because I said, "Yeah, people my age are all retired and they're all ready to die." I said, I can't retire. I never had a job. And that's the secret, is that the thing that I tell people, or that I want to advise people on, is to find a work that you don't want a vacation from.
Right.
So I have never literally had a vacation. Even though I travel across country all the time, I was in Arizona. I was in Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago. I was in Arizona. I'll be in Arizona later. I'll be in Cody, Wyoming in the summer. I'll be in Kansas. It's not vacations. Other people will pay for a vacation, but I'm going because I'm doing a benefit, because I'm, they're all benefits that I do. A fundraiser for a town, for handicapped children, for something. So I'm going there and I'm enjoying every minute of it, because you're meeting the people. I'm meeting all the movie fans, all the Western movie fans, and a lot of them love what I do. I wish I had your job, and I said, you can have my job if you go out and apply yourself and do it, and work at it, because it's got to be in your heart. A lot of people, and the reason why they don't go anywhere is because they're afraid of succeeding. They're afraid of taking that chance. And I'm in the same position. I'm putting together a TV series right now, and I haven't pulled the trigger on it because I'm afraid of what if it's successful, or what if I fail at it? I don't know. So
Those, it's amazing. Well, and in that regard, you know, make your dreams come true. Make them
but
happen.
you know, what's killing me though is you haven't let me finish my story on the Fringe of Hollywood.
On the what?
So on the Fringe of Hollywood.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Of Hollywood.
I want to give a shout out to some people.
I go into a producer's office for a meeting a couple of years ago, and he bought the book. That shows you how not prepared I am. I should have had my books here so I could put them up and show them to you. But I walk in, and he has the book on his desk. He bought the book, and he picked it up, and he said, "Have you read this book? This book tells you how to make a Western." I said, "Read it? I wrote it." That's my story. We got the job.
I remember that story from you, and I think that's got to be like the crowning moment for every author in the world to have that experience. How marvelous!
Marvelous! You can't ask for a better setup than that.
No, that's fantastic. I want to give a shout out to some of the people that I got to work with, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of them, but I want to say a hey to Tony Herbert and to Rick and Tag Grote and to John and Rain Davis and to Tim Abel, obviously Will Roberts, Mike Gaglio, Larry Poole, and of course Michael Paré. There was a few others. Like I said, I'm not going to remember everybody that was in it, and of course you know. Despicable mayor that you were, but I loved it. And so many good guys.
Tim Abel told me one time after I did one of the scenes and I'm walking and I had this horrible limp, and he said, "Man, you got that limp down right." And I said, "It's real."
It's real.
So,
right?
Yeah, I had my knee replaced last year, and I'm feeling much better.
I was telling Peter before the show because we were shooting at one of the.
Wait, I am Peter.
Yes, and I was telling you before the show. I'm telling the audience that before the show, we were shooting a fight scene. Michael was directing, choreographing a fight scene and everything, and Tim was in it, and Michael and the Groats and anyway, and in the background is this mountain with his dog Dio running along the crest of the mountain. That I said just as one of the fondest memories I have is this backlit dog from the sun, running along the crest of this mountain while we were making the movie. One of the most amazing things that you don't know this, but I posted these photos. I've never figured out what it was. While we were shooting, it was like this light came down. It was right in front of me. Michael was over here in the video village, with a bunch of people. They were doing a dolly shot on the walkway of the set. And this light came out of the sky. It was almost like some kind of alien abduction thing. And it tracked along. And I took photos of it. I took a movie of it. I have to go through hard drive after hard drive to find it. But it was in my last Facebook thing. And I was like, it was the most amazing kind of weird phenomenon that I'd ever experienced while sitting on a movie set. But literally, it looked like a laser beam came down and just tracked on the ground. Not fast, but that moved, and I'm just like, whoa. So I got some photos of it. If I can dig those up, I'll show you, because they're
divine intervention. Intervention.
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, it was a blessing from above. It was this project is blessed. So Shooting Star is coming out on Father's Day. We don't know yet how it's coming out, or how can people find it. Now, Michael Pfeiffer, who directed it, is a good guy, and he's done. Like yourself, I mean, you're both very prolific. He's done a lot of stuff, TV movies for Hallmark and other channels, and Lifetime and things like that. He's almost always got something on television somewhere, and he directs. Yeah, I mean, I don't think a week goes by that there's not a Michael Pfeiffer movie somewhere. And then yourself. Is there any way that people who are interested in seeing the movie or getting the movie, or since we're talking about it, can find out more about it? Where should they go?
Good question. Where should they go? I don't know. People have been telling me where to go for a long time. I don't know, because WeGo, who is the distribution company that's distributing Soldier's Revenge, is also distributing that. But just the other day we had a conversation, so I'm not sure, if it's going to be in theaters, if it's going to be streaming, because that's the whole way of things right now. It's all the streaming. It's going on Hulu. It's going on everything, and I'm not sure. That's above my pay grade to get it where it's supposed to be. I don't know. So we're still in April. I don't know where we're going to be in June.
So yeah, well, that's only really 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
And I don't know.
Yeah, it's about 5-6 weeks from now. So if we get any information,
Mike knows it before I do, and then he calls me up or, lets me know later on. 10 minutes after he finds out. But I just don't know. And that's one thing you're going to get from me. You're not going to get a story because if I don't know, I don't know. I will tell you, I don't know.
So I want to
like a mushroom.
I want to shift gears here just again for a second, and we're going to have to wrap up here shortly. But I've really thoroughly enjoyed this. I want to again thank you for being here and for talking the movie. And well, they can go see Soldier's Revenge. So they can see some of the other things that you've done because those are out there. They can look them up on IMDb or
well, one that just came out in February. It's called Desperate Riders. And then in December, we had another one come out called The Last Shootout. We had Bruce Dern in it. We filmed it all on the ranch. We filmed it all. The building that we used for my office that we had our scenes in.
Right.
That building is now the stage station for a stagecoach being, it was Siege at Riker Station was the original title of the book. And then earlier in the year, we had one come out called Catch the Bullet, which we went up to Wyoming and filmed in 20. So I think those are things that just came out.
That's awesome. I think the last time I heard from Michael, it was I forgot about this, but that building said I've digitally removed the rain from the scene, and I had forgotten that there was a couple of drips or something that came from the roof while you and I were shooting.
Oh, the wind?
Huh? I mean, I forgot about it. I didn't even think about it. And then I get this message that we've taken the rain out. I'm like, the rain out? Oh, that's right. There were a couple of drops that came down between you and me.
Oh,
but that's what that scene
we did last year in Tennessee called Desperate Riders. We had snow. It was one day it was 60 degrees. The next day it was 19. We had one day it's sunny. Next day it's a cloudy day, and then we had snow. It was like, so a lot of
but you and I
that you couldn't pay for.
Yeah, but you and I were indoors when that scene was going on. we were in your office, and
as Robert Ferris said, it's just my kind of weather. It's just my kind of weather. It doesn't matter what it is. You have no control over the weather. Enjoy it. Just if it's cold and so you walk inside. If it's wet and rainy,
all right. I'm gonna ask you if you remember what you said and if you can repeat it, because you said I'll try and set it up. I may not be able to do it well, but because it was leaking, we had some leaks. You said something about, well, why don't you go fix that leak? And you go, because it's raining.
It's raining.
So why don't you fix it when
why don't you go fix it when it's not raining? Well, it don't leak then.
Exactly. So very cool. So I want to switch gears here just for a moment to give a shout out to Susan Sherayko, your wife. She's also a speaker and an author and a presenter. She has her own show on
for 36 years next week.
That's your anniversary?
Yeah, next Tuesday. 36 years.
Marriage?
With the same full-time all-night woman.
Wow.
What?
No, wow. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. But I want to give a shout out because she's the producer at the Home and Garden channel, correct? And then she also has her own show, a podcast and stuff that I was on hers and she was on mine. So I wanted to make sure that we mentioned the Sheraykos have a busy life doing what they love.
We're two ships in the past because we never We never cross. You know, she's always here on the computer. I'm not. I am not a computer guy. I made that a Navajo Indian told me this. I don't know if I ever told you the story or not, but 10 years ago or so, we were doing a commercial for one of the casinos, and they brought a lot of Indians in from the reservation. So we're in there, and it was the evil white guys killing the Indians so that we could take over their land. And now how the casino is taking the money from the evil white guys. So we're talking, and one day he's talking to me, and he's saying, you know, Indians take a sweat lodge. We have a sweat lodge that brings all of the poisons out of your body. And I said, yes, I know all about a sweat lodge. I knew that. And the next day we're talking, and he said, I'm going to tell you an ancient Navajo story that my grandfather told me. He said, one day, a giant spider is going to spin a web around Mother Earth and start strangling it. But Mother Earth will survive. And I looked at him and I said, you know what you just told me in the last 2 days? I said, you talked about global warming and the World Wide Web. I said, I'm not going to interfere with Mother Earth. I'm not going to harm her. I am going to live peacefully with her. I won't touch a computer. I will not be part of that giant spider spinning a web around. So I use my phone all the time, and they go, oh, you know, your phone is a computer. I said, yeah, but it's my phone where I talk to people. And that's why I don't text people. At least I try not to. But people text me all the time and said, I don't hear a text. Call me on the phone and it rings, like my horse rang before. But I don't text. I don't deal in computers. I don't know how. Susan had to come and turn all of this stuff on for me because I have no idea. I can't turn a computer on. I stay away from it. I'm with Mother Nature.
I'm right there with the texting. I do not like to text. I think it's okay if you're, you know, in a crowded theater or in a concert where you can't hear each other. You go, hey, okay, let's go meet me by the front gate or something like that. But to text conversations or to me is I'd just rather be on the phone or face to face. So I'm right there with you on that one. And and boy, believe me, the help I get.
Tell people when they text me, just call me up. I'll talk to you.
Exactly. Peter, I have enjoyed this so much. You are a man of so many talents and so much knowledge and so much expertise and so much history in your short lifespan. That I love it. You know, life is too short to do anything but have fun, and you do what you love and you love what you do, and you have shared that with me many times on other shows as well as here today, and I fully appreciate that. I want to thank Susan for turning the computer on for you so that we could do this today. And one of these days I'll be back home in Los Angeles. I want to come out and hang out with you in the library. I miss those times that we've done that, and you're always such a gracious host.
And I have more bottles of whiskey.
That's cool. Nothing like coming over.
I've been redoing the library because I overcrowded it. I buy an average and read an average of 5 books a week, and I filled every shelf all over the place. So now I've moved other stuff out, moved more shelves in, and now I'm trying to reorganize everything. But it's time consuming for me because I was moving books, last night and the day before, and all of a sudden I sit there and say, wait, I haven't read this for a while. And I sat down and spent a half hour reading a book. Last night, by about 10 o'clock, I'm putting all of these plays that I have in, and a friend of mine, my very best friend who died 6 years ago, Ralph Pape, who was a playwright in New York, and he wrote a play called Girls We Have Known, which I performed in 93. But he wrote it, I gave him the story, and he wrote the play on it. And I was reading it last night and laughing while I read it. Said, I always wanted to make this a film. But now when I read it last night, I saw it's kind of dated because he wrote it in 1980, and a lot of the references are for that period. And so I'd have to rewrite my own story that I gave him, that he wrote. And then I'll probably get yelled at from Drum Display Service. Whoever owns, I don't know who owns the rights to it. because
Well, it's amazing. I wrote a screenplay in 1976 and 7, and it farmed it all over Hollywood, and then saw parts of it show up in all sorts of different movies, and then a movie that very similar to the screenplay. And I've always wanted to make it, but it's dated. I mean, it truly, truly is dated, and it's kind of like the advent of computers or the iPhone. I mean, it had a technology in that movie that was, breakthrough technology at that time that we had kind of written one of the first screenplays about this technology before anyone else did. So it's dated and it's now obsolete. And I thought one time, what if I just made a retro movie about it? Now, it could be that some of the references would be lost on a lot of people, but I watch movies now where I see them go to a phone, that you and I used to have rotary phones that are either on the wall or, on a table. And the young kids today have no reference for that whatsoever, but they're still putting out movies with phones, or like Superman still goes to a phone booth, doesn't he? I mean, it's like maybe it doesn't need to be updated that much.
Well, just a lot of the references, some of the references that he made, not all of them, but some of them, I just didn't think that they fit in today's society. Whereas, and when I was reading it, I was thinking about Tennessee Williams. So I did Streetcar Named Desire in '77, the 30th anniversary in New York. And I realized it's Tennessee Williams plays Streetcar Named Desire. It can't be dated. It fits in any mode. So you have to take some of these references out. I did Long Day's Journey into Night, and that isn't dated. It fits. You have to capture the essence of the person, the thing of the person. What Ralph wrote in the play was a lot of references to that day right there. For instance, the thing is set on like it was the day after Henry Miller died, and who was his favorite author, and we're the character's favorite author. This is my favorite author, and it's the day after he died. And the other character is going, who's Henry Miller? Oh, didn't he write a lot about sex? So as we're talking about girls we have known, one of the references he made, he goes, you sure you didn't read Henry Miller? That's it's just some other of the items in there, because we wanted to film it back in the early '80s, and we just couldn't get the money for it back then. And we almost did it in the late '80s. It's, to get money in this business, that's the hardest part.
Right.
To get your investor to invest in. I had another guy, very wealthy, came up to me and he said, my daughter wants to be in a movie. I said, good, you give us the money. Yeah, I'll give you the money for the movie. And my daughter, let's do the script, and we have to put her in the movie, and she's going to have a good part. Okay. So as we're doing that, of course, a couple of weeks later, she decides, she doesn't want to be in the movie. So he bought her a boutique down in Santa Monica. And he called me up and he said, yeah, she doesn't want to be an actress anymore. She wants to be a businesswoman. So I bought her a store. Yeah. Wow. That's how fickle the world is. So you have to deal with it. You just have to roll with it. Okay, fine. Next. What's up next? What can we do next?
Well, that attitude is what keeps you going. I mean, look at how many years you've been doing this, and it's beautiful, and you keep doing it, and I love it, and I love you, and I love Susan, and I'm so grateful to know you and to have worked with you and to be a friend and to have you here on the show today. We're going to have to close the show, but
I'm glad you had me on here.
I'm glad I did too, actually. And so any last thought that you'd like to leave? Again, caravanwest.com, but any last thoughts that you'd like to leave with the viewers?
Just follow your heart. Do what your heart tells you. Don't follow your mind. Don't worry about money. Oh, how much money am I going to make? And just don't worry about that. Money comes. Everything comes as long as you're doing what you love to do. As I look at life in 4 stages. From you're born until you're 25, that's when you discover what you want to do in life. and you try everything, try anything, and you can say, I like it, I'll do it again. I don't like it, I won't do it anymore. That's why I always say, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Because if you like it today, you can do it again tomorrow. And if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. And don't let anybody make you do it again. Since I got out of the Air Force in 1968, I have not made a bed since then. I have vowed I wouldn't, and I haven't. So even if I'm staying as a guest over somebody's house or something, I tell them right off, I said, don't expect me to make the bed. I'm not going to. I'll mess it up, but I'm not going to make a bed. The other thing is follow, again, when I say follow your heart, there's something, there's a little voice in you. Davy Crockett said it. There's a little voice inside of you that tells you what's right and what's wrong, what's going to make you feel good, what's going to make you feel wholesome, what's going to do something. And just ask the voice, and that voice will tell you. You know, Walt Disney did it in his cartoons. You always had Goofy or Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. They would always have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, and they'd all be whispering in your ear. And you have to make that choice, because that choice is yours, because that little voice is telling you. It's telling you what to do. So go ahead and do it. Do the best you can. Don't think you're going to be perfect. Don't think everything is going to fall into line. Don't think you're going to get by without making a lot of mistakes, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect. So go ahead and do it.
Wow, that's beautiful, Peter. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite you to hang out in the green room for just a couple of minutes while I close out the show, and I'll be right there with you in just a minute. And to say goodbye officially, I'll see you in a bit. Thank you so much. That's Mr. Peter Sherayko. Wow, what a treat. This is a show that I love all my shows and all my guests, but Peter and I have shared so many different experiences in common that I'm truly was wonderful to have him here today. And shout out to all the good people who I got to work with on his film and project. I'm very pleased that I got to do that, and I hope you go see the movie. I hope you enjoy it. Of course, let us know if you do. With that said, we're here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and wherever that is in your local area. Be sure to join us live when you can. At some point in the coming days, we'll be back on Facebook Live and broadcasting, as well as on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, Roku, and other platforms. Keep in mind the Can You Really Think and Grow Rich Summit Tour coming up in June with Ace Productions and the Los Angeles Tribune. You're going to want to be part of that. We're going to check into that. And there's just so much more. I, of course, have lots of courses and programs and things available at rexsikes.com. That's my website. It's Idea Seminars. Please go check that out. Join us in a program if you'd like to. And I also want to tell you about my book, because my book, Life on Your Terms, which Peter had mentioned, is available from Amazon. But when you get the book, if you'll go to Amazon, then return to this website below, rexsikes.com/book. I'm going to give you a bonus training. It's been valued at $497. It's an online training. You can watch it at your leisure, called The Mastery Loop. It's how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your self-talk, your behaviors, and the talents or skills that you want to learn to master. It's all about how you can master. Peter talked about it earlier, about mastering horseback riding or mastering skills and what it takes. And so this is a training that I'm giving you absolutely free in exchange for purchasing the book at Amazon. So you take your receipt code back to my website, you put it in a particular box, and you get access to this online training. So please go ahead and do that. And with that said, I'm Rex Sikes, and as you know, I always close the show with this sentiment, and that is, if you think of something as a problem, it will be a problem. But if you think of something as a blessing, it will be a blessing. And with that in mind, celebrate everything. I will see you next time. Thanks for being here. Share the show.